All right, so for the session today, the topic is Beat the Burnout and Rise Above. So burnout is obviously really common in today's fast-paced environment. And our next speaker, Amanda Belcombe, will be exploring the different facets to stress. And essentially, she used to be an advisor. She's now a health and mental fitness coach with a focus on burnout prevention. So Amanda will explore different facets of stress, distinguish between its positive and negative impacts, and recognizing the warning signs of burnout. She was a former award-winning advisor. She experienced burnout herself in 2021, and that's when it became her mission to heal not just herself, but use her passion for health and connection to support other high-achieving professionals. Please welcome to the stage, Amanda Belcombe.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is great to be here at the FAAA Congress for 2023. $332 billion. That's a huge figure. Hands up who thinks this relates to the biggest Australian super fund. Anyone? Hands up who thinks this figure relates to the Australian health budget for 2023. Okay, well, it's actually neither. $332 billion is how much burnout is costing the globe every year. And for me, it almost cost me my health. As a former financial advisor, my background is that I was an advisor for 17 years. And I loved being a planner. I loved building relationships with my clients and helping them to navigate retirement. But 2 years ago, in November 2021, and I can clearly remember it, my husband and I were walking to our favourite cafe, ordering our favourite almond cappuccino, and as we walked back to the car, I burst into tears, and I said to my husband, I just can't do this anymore. And that was actually the culmination of a whole lot of little moments that led to this point. You see, burnout can creep up on you, and there'd actually been warning signs the 6 months beforehand. And I remember I started waking up in the middle of the night. I started getting more frequent headaches. I was starting to feel sick. I was emotional, often bursting into tears before work. I had this overwhelming fatigue that set in, and I started to have trouble making decisions. And oddly enough, I started feeling really negative about my job, which was so out of character for me because I'm a super positive person, and I really loved being a planner. And essentially, I remember saying to myself, God, what is wrong with you? You're able to cope with things and just move on. And I said to my boss, I'm feeling really stressed and burnt out, but he didn't understand what burnout was. And to be honest, neither did I at that point in time. And so I essentially took the next 12 months to recover and heal from burnout. And my doctor said to me, Amanda, you're really, really lucky. And luckily, she actually understood what burnout was because a lot of people don't. And she said, you need to take some time out because this is actually really serious. And I essentially, I guess my experience of burnout led me to decide that I wanted to help other people because the more and more I shared my experience, the more that I realized that I wasn't alone, that there was a lot of people going through this. So I decided to retrain to become a health and mental health coach. And it's why I'm so passionate about creating awareness around burnout so that more people like yourselves don't end up where I did. So today I want to share with you what burnout and stress actually are, the indicators so that you can recognize them for yourselves and others in your team, and also some simple practical strategies that you can take away and implement, because burnout is actually real. Recovery is possible, but prevention is best. Now, I've put together just a couple of statistics, just to let you know the gravity of the situation with burnout. Now, it's impacting us collectively, but it's also impacting the bottom line. And the three main factors that are fueling burnout are being overworked or workload, not being able to switch off or disconnect, and not feeling connected to or supported by their team. And when I was researching for this presentation, I came across the Wellbeing Report in 2021 that was done on financial advisors. And the research indicated that financial advisors are under pressure, and it's showing, which I'm sure you're all pretty well aware of. A lot of you were experiencing high levels of burnout. A third of you were seeking medical care to manage your health symptoms that were caused by stress. 61% of you were having poor sleep due to stress, and also around 53% of you were turning to alcohol to help cope with stress. However, in this report, there was also a group of financial advisors who were flourishing. And there were several characteristics of these advisors. Does anyone want to have a guess at what these characteristics were? Anyone? Sorry? They didn't drink? Yep, that's one. Exercise? Meditation? Sleep? Excellent. Well, I'll reveal them. Firstly, psychological flexibility. So for those of you that don't know what psychological flexibility is, it allows people to adapt to changes in their environment and react and take action in healthy ways that align with their individual goals and values. Psychological capital. So these advisors rated highly on efficacy, optimism, resilience, and hope. Adaptive performance. These advisors were able to adapt to a rapidly changing environment. They prioritized their health and well-being, which some of you said. And they had a really good support network and engaged in industry support, so with their peers and the industry body. So let's cover off the fundamentals of stress and burnout. What do they actually mean? What is stress and what is burnout? And let's be really clear on those terms, because we hear them a lot and we see them in the headlines. But what are they? So put simply, stress is the mechanism by which our bodies and minds respond to a challenge. Hands up who thinks all stress is bad for our health or negative. No? Okay. Well, most of us do equate stress with negative experiences. So the concept of positive stress might be actually new to you. So what is it? Well, positive stress is known as eustress. It's functional and beneficial, and we feel challenged, but in a positive way. Positive stress motivates and energizes us to that challenge. We feel self-assured, capable, and excited about the outcome. So we can kind of have that stress is enhancing mindset when we think about positive stress. And some examples might be starting a new job or starting a new work project where you've got to learn new skills and get out of your comfort zone, or even exercising. But when stress becomes too intense or prolonged, it slips into negative stress. And that can be excessive, so that's when we have one thing after another and we can't quite gain our breath. Or it can be chronic, which means it's always there in the background, nagging away at us. And that could be work-related stress, so that relentless workload. Or it can look like a relationship breakdown, or potentially navigating a serious health issue. So let's look at the stress performance curve. So this gives us a really good visual of what positive and negative stress really looks like. So when we experience optimum levels of stress, that's when we're motivated, we're focused, it facilitates our learning and growth, we're healthy, and we can perform at our peak. However, when stress is chronic and prolonged, it starts to impact our health and our performance. It erodes our capacity to recover and impacts our ability to cope. So you can see when we move to the red zone, that's when stress becomes overloaded. We start to feel fatigued, we feel sick, we may start to feel anxious or get angry and irritable, and if that stress continues, we head to burnout and breakdown. And you can see next to that is disease. So the 4 months after I was diagnosed with burnout, I actually got a cancer diagnosis. And I can tell you now that a cancer diagnosis makes you get very clear very quickly about what matters. And I was lucky enough to catch it at the right time and implement the tools and strategies that I will be sharing with you. But the reason that I'm sharing this with you is that burnout is serious, and if we ignore the signs and signals, it could lead to more serious or sinister health outcomes. So what is burnout? Well, the World Health Organization positions burnout as an occupational phenomenon and not a medical condition. So that means that you can't catch it, it's not genetic, and it's not a disease. It's directly correlated with our jobs, our work, and the hectic pace of modern life. And the definition of burnout is that it's a syndrome resulting in chronic workplace stress that is not successfully managed. And there are essentially 3 signs of burnout, and I call them the 3 red flags. So firstly, you would be experiencing feelings of energy depletion and exhaustion, and this can be physical, mental, or emotional. And it's essentially when your batteries just won't recharge. You might have had 2 weeks annual leave and you still come back to work and you don't feel refreshed or replenished. You can experience negative feelings, cynicism, and a desire to distance oneself from work. And for me, I definitely felt those negative feelings. And lastly, reduced professional efficacy. So this is when you start to experience a lack of productivity or feelings of incompetence, or maybe you're just like, what's the point? It doesn't matter what I do. And it's also where tasks that you would normally perform, that are routine, start to take a Herculean effort. It's like you're working really hard, but you're just not getting anywhere. And it's been described as running a marathon through molasses. Now, statistically, some of you in this room may have experienced or be experiencing some of these signs of burnout. And that was me in your chair just a few years ago. But I want to assure you that there are plenty of things that you can do to regain your energy and well-being. But burnout isn't purely a work issue, even though we know workload, organisational culture, and job design are factors that contribute to burnout. Research also indicates that there are key personality and behavioural traits that make us more prone to increased stress and burnout. And these key personality and behavioural traits are perfectionistic personality style. So essentially, perfectionists often set the bar way too high and strive to achieve an unattainable standard. And this becomes exhausting and unsustainable. The inability to say no. There are people pleasers. They often overcommit, they don't want to let anyone down, and they struggle to set effective boundaries. And then we have our type A personality. So they're our high achievers. They focus on achievement, they work too hard, and they tend to neglect their health and well-being. Now, I'm guessing that these personality and behavioural traits probably cover everyone in this room. Am I right? Can anyone relate to these? I know I certainly can. Thank you for being honest. And it definitely was a contributor to my burnout. So The good news about this is, though, as a coach, I work with my clients to help them understand their behaviours, their beliefs, and the patterns that at times may not be helpful. And then when they have this awareness, they can create change that supports their well-being rather than sabotaging it. Like creating healthy boundaries or prioritising their self-care and also being able to say no. So this is essentially the first step on understanding how do we catch it, manage it, and actually help ourselves. And we know the risk, or the people that are at risk of getting burnout, but burnout can actually happen to anyone. In fact, it happens to good people. And I know with my own journey of overcoming burnout, it has led me to understand burnout a whole lot more. And the way that I help my clients is with some key tools and strategies. And the first key one I'd like to introduce you to is the fatigue to flourishing continuum. And essentially what this does, it creates awareness and a check-in point. So I'm just going to go through a couple of these on that continuum. So if you're flourishing, you're a 9 or a 10. You're high performing, you're at the top of your game, you've got really good work-life balance, you feel positive, optimistic, you've got high energy levels, you're on top of your workload, and you've got the capacity to do more, that bring it on kind of mindset. Now, if you're surviving, you're managing most things, but it can sometimes feel like you're just holding on. And you're probably starting to drop a few of those balls, but you're not letting others down. You might be getting more grumpy, disinterested, or tired, but you're really living reactively, and potentially you're starting to turn to crutches like alcohol, comfort eating, or doom scrolling to help you cope. Now, I just want to speak to the surviving zone, and it's actually where a lot of us spend a reasonable amount of time, and that's just because we live meaningful and busy lives, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're proactive and disciplined in your self-care, your rest, and your recovery. And then we've got fatigued. That's when you're a 1 or a 2, and the wheels are most likely starting to fall off. You're failing to perform tasks that would normally be routine, and your relationships are most likely suffering, you're disengaged, you're not meeting your responsibilities, you're probably withdrawn, you're feeling constantly overwhelmed, and most likely taking refuge in problematic behaviours. So these are just a couple of examples of what it might feel like to be on this continuum at different points. And just to realise that we can experience going up and down this continuum at different points, like through the day, through the week, or through the month. So what I'd like you to do, I would like you to get out your phones. We're going to do a poll. And I'd like you to think about the last 3 months or the last couple of months, how you've been feeling. Where do you think you've spent the majority of your time on this continuum? And it's really important that we're honest with ourselves. And I know that I've been guilty of that. You know, sometimes we can think, oh, actually, I feel all right. It's not that bad, and we ignore the signs and signals. But this is really just about an awareness. And I understand that we're heading towards the end of November. We're getting towards the end of the year. And I remember as a planner that October and November were particularly busy times. Okay, so just looking at the results now. And most of you are in that surviving to achieving, which is probably pretty normal with the clients that I do see. So today for you is really about learning some tools and strategies that's going to help move you up the continuum towards flourishing. There's a couple of you flourishing, which is fantastic. So for you, today might be about upskilling as leaders and being able to help your teams. And then I just want to talk to the people that are a 4 and below. Thank you for being honest. I know what that feels like when I burnt out. And it's really hard to admit that to ourselves, but I encourage you to reach out and get support. And I will be putting up a slide towards the end of this presentation. So thanks for that. Okay, so in my experience as a coach and my personal experience, I came across the 3-step process to help you to beat the burnout and rise above. And that is to catch it, check in, and tool up. So let's look at catch it. So if you're going to catch it for yourself, you really need to build in awareness to understand what the signs and signals are of burnout. Because sometimes they're not easy to spot. And burnout is a gradual process. Often the signs and signals can be really subtle at first, but they start to be louder over time and get worse over time. So we want to pay attention to those early signs and signals, because then we can actively build in recovery, and that will help to manage our stress, build resilience, and help to prevent burnout. Now, if you're a leader, you really need to be connected to your team so that you can pick up or spot those signs and signals. So I'm going to go through them with you now, just quickly, and I've grouped them into 4 categories. So firstly, we've got physical. So that could look like frequent headaches, muscle pain, sleep disturbances, or appetite changes. We have mental and behavioural, and I just want to point out that anxiety and depression can be symptoms of burnout. Now, they're often diagnosed, but sometimes the burnout is actually missed. So just be aware of that. This is also behavioural, so we can start to use food, drugs, alcohol to help us cope. And we might be withdrawing from others. Cognitive. So a client of mine who was a head teacher came to me, and he would normally plan out the term, no worries, and he was burnt out, and he started to have memory problems, brain fog, and started to have difficulty planning, which was a task he could normally do really well. And then we have emotional. So we might be frustrated or irritable or really angry or teary. This is where we start to become really disengaged, cynical and negative outlook, and that feeling of helpless, trapped or defeated. So check-in. How do you do a check-in for yourself? I know for me, I have a daily meditation practice which I started after I burnt out. So for me, it's about getting still, connecting to my mind and body, and really checking in with myself and how I'm feeling. You know, why is a check-in often skipped over or missed? We might catch it, the signs and signals, but we don't give ourselves permission to stop. We just keep pushing through, we just keep going. So my invitation to you all today is that when you catch it, the signs and signals, that you automatically do a check-in with yourself and make that your new process. It's kind of like a client review. You know, you have a review with your clients every 12 months. You check in, you see how their finances are going, how are they going, have their goals changed, and then you make the appropriate changes. So it's a similar thing, but we want to do it more regularly for our health and well-being. So I've got some suggestions today on how to do a check-in, but you'll each find your own unique way on doing this. But what I find is really effective is getting really curious, building your awareness, and then seeing where it leads. So some things you can ask yourself is, what are the signs and signals that you're noticing? Is it positive stress or negative stress? How long's it been going on for? Tools, maybe you can use the fatigue to flourishing tool because it's visual and it creates that awareness. Or if you're a leader, you can build it into your check-ins with your team. How is your sleep, your exercise, and your nutrition? Maybe you've noticed you're starting to wake up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock worrying about work. Maybe you can't actually turn off and switch off before you go to sleep. Maybe you're starting to skip your workouts. Or maybe with nutrition, you're getting home after work, you're feeling really tired and exhausted and can't be bothered to cook a healthy meal, so you're ordering takeout. Or maybe you're drinking 6 to 8 cups of coffee just to get through the day. And are you connected to your values? What I find when I'm working with my clients is that we're often living really busy lives where we've got work demands, family demands, and we often become disconnected to our values, to what really matters. And taking a moment to pause, reflect, and get really clear on what matters to you is a really great way of checking in with ourselves. Because when we're living out of alignment with our values, it profoundly affects our well-being. And leaders, how do you do a check-in with your team? Maybe you've noticed one of your team members is fatigued or struggling, or maybe they've become really negative and normally they wouldn't be. Just grabbing them, having a coffee, having a conversation and saying, I've noticed this or I've seen this. Are you okay? Or building it into your one-on-ones more formally, just checking in with your team, having these conversations is really about being proactive and preventative. Okay, so tool up and take charge. So now I'd like to share with you some practical tools and lifestyle strategies that you can implement to help build recovery into your day. And it's all about micro habits. It doesn't need to take a lot of time. The secret to managing stress is monitoring your levels, checking in, and then employing tools to recover effectively. And this helps build your capacity to cope with future stress. It builds your resilience and helps to prevent burnout and also helps you to flourish. We know that rest and recovery are crucial to sustain your well-being. So let's start off with the lifestyle strategies: sleep, movement, and nutrition. So sleep. Adequate sleep is so important to how we feel and how we function. Getting enough sleep, 7 to 8 hours, going to bed and waking up at the same time every night helps to anchor your sleep. And then getting 30 minutes of sunshine on your eyes first thing in the morning helps to set your circadian rhythm and set you up for a good night's sleep. Movement. Movement's a no-brainer. It helps boost your well-being, your mood, it enhances brain function, and it also enhances your ability to cope with stress. So it's an important way that we build recovery in. So we want to aim for 30 minutes a day, and this can be broken up into 10-minute bursts because, for example, a 10-minute walk improves your mood for up to 2 hours after. And then we have nutrition. If we think of our brain and our body as a Ferrari, we want to fuel it with premium fuel. If we eat a healthy diet, that helps to improve our mental health, our mood, and our energy levels. Now, I just want to talk to sleep a little bit more because sleep is one of the main ways that we build in recovery. Now, I'm part of a health coaching team that is delivering a corporate wellbeing program to a New Zealand corporate. And the participants in that program get a device, and it measures their sleep, their stress, their recovery, and their physical activity. And I wanted to share with you my sleep data because it kind of blew me away how different things can actually impact our sleep. So this is a good night's sleep. I got 7 to 8 hours, and you can see there's a lot of green. So green stands for recovery. So I had really good quality recovery this night. My battery was fully charged, and I was able to perform and function at my best the next day. But I also did things during that day that actually promoted a good night's sleep. So I ate well, I got sunshine in my eyes, I got over 10,000 steps, and I built in some other recovery throughout the day. However, the next night I went out for a friend's birthday and I had a glass and a half of wine. Now, I don't really drink a lot, but what you can see is that my sleep was decimated. It did not turn green, so recovery, until 4 a.m. So the red stands for stress and activation. So essentially, my battery only got 30% charged. I didn't wake up refreshed, and I certainly couldn't perform at my best the next day. And I'm not saying don't ever drink alcohol, but what I am saying is that to be aware of things that impact your sleep, like alcohol, like caffeine, like stress, your monkey mind, so if you're worrying a lot, and being overweight can all impact your your sleep, and then affect your recovery from stress. Okay, pause. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've spent the last 20 years rushing, bringing up kids and working. So I really had to learn how to slow down and press pause during my day. So some ways that we can press pause are through breath. So deep belly breathing. And a simple technique is breathing in for 5 and out for 5 through your nose. And you only have to do this for a couple of minutes. It could be on your commute to work. It could be while you're waiting for the kettle to boil. It could be after a stressful meeting. We've got mindfulness and meditation. And if you're curious to know more, there's some great resources out there, apps like the Calm app or Insight Timer. Nature, if you live near blue or green spaces, studies show that just 20 minutes in nature is enough to reduce the stress hormone cortisol. So get outside. And relaxation techniques. So reading, massage, listening to music, whatever it is that relaxes you, and building that into your day. So I'm going to take you through a mindfulness technique really quickly. And what mindfulness does is it grounds you in the present moment. And it helps you to, when you're feeling stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed. And it only takes a minute, so we'll go through it quickly. S stands for stop what you're doing and pause. T, take a few slow, deep breaths and really be mindful of those breaths, how it's impacting you. O, observe your experience just as it is. So then you're going to turn internally, notice your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your bodily sensations. How are they feeling? Maybe you're tense or you've got butterflies. Just noticing what's coming up and not judging it and just being there. And this really helps to calm you down. And lastly, proceed with intentionality. So think about how you want to move forward from this point. You might need to ask yourself, what do I need to support myself in this moment? Or how do I want to respond to this challenging situation? So mindfulness is really about pausing, centering yourself, and then responding more mindfully. And mindfulness helps to improve psychological flexibility, which was one of the characteristics of the planners that were flourishing. Okay, unplug. So we know that the rise of technology has blurred the boundaries between our work lives and our professional lives. Especially now, a lot more of us are working from home. So hands up, who checks their phone within 5 minutes of waking up? Check emails, social media, yeah. So the statistic is about 69% of us. So what I want you to do is to consider your digital habits. Which ones do you want to keep and which ones do you want to replace? If you didn't touch your phone for the first 30 minutes of your day, what habit could you create that would serve your well-being? Maybe it's moving your body. Maybe it's connecting with your partner and children. Maybe it's reading something and learning something new. So let's build some rules around our technology. Now, with organizations, the company that I used to work with during COVID, they realized that Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting was fatiguing people. They were being unproductive and they were feeling drained. So they put in a blackout period between 1 and 2 so that no meetings could be scheduled, so that everyone could have a 1-hour lunch break where they could disconnect, unplug, replenish, and come back in the afternoon and be more productive, more creative, more collaborative. I know Volkswagen turn off their emails at the end of the workday at 5 o'clock and don't restart them until 8:30 the next morning. And this is to encourage their employees to disconnect in their personal life and give themselves permission to switch off. Okay, play. Can you remember the last time that you made time for play and fun? Now, this is a very grainy picture of me doing my first ever surfing lesson this year with my family on holidays. It was something that I always wanted to try, and it was really fun, a lot harder than I thought though. So play is being joyfully immersed in the moment. And what's really cool about kids is that they're not worrying about the future, they're not checking off their to-do list when they're playing, they're just living in the moment. So what is play for adults? Well, it's essentially something for recreation, something we do purely for enjoyment, and we do it because we want to. And it can be any activity as long as you adopt a playful mindset and have fun. And there are a lot of the research show there's a lot of benefits for our health, our mental health, and our productivity. And some of them are an opportunity for flow. It wards off depression. It helps us to relax. And we can see increased productivity levels and creativity at work. So I wanted you to think about what play means to you. And as health coaches, we like to set challenges. So my challenge to you is, what small things can you add into your week to bring more play? So lastly, connection and support. Social contact is nature's antidote to stress. You know, talking face to face with a really good listener is the fastest way to calm our nervous system and relieve stress. And we know that positive relationships boost our recovery, and I've actually seen this in the data. Good quality relationships are associated with better health, better mental health, and longevity. So invest in your relationships, both professionally and at work. And we saw that the planners that were flourishing, they still might have been irritable or angry about changes or challenges in the industry, but what they did was they were able to talk to their peers, they were able to vent, but they were also able to share ideas, see different perspectives, and this helped to drive innovation. Now, as leaders, we want to be having conversations with our team. We want to check in with their well-being. We want to find out how they stay healthy and well, because this helps your team feel supported. And we want to be creating healthy workplaces because this buffers us against stress and burnout. And remember that one of the contributors to burnout is a lack of support, especially in the workplace. So these conversations are about being proactive and preventative, and hopefully helping to reduce those workplace stress issues earlier. Now, for those of you that are feeling down that fatigued end of the continuum, the FAAA have a wellbeing program that you can access through member services. It's free and confidential, and I've provided the contact number there. If you'd like to know more, go to the website under wellbeing. Okay, so we've covered off some really simple tools and strategies that you can build into your days and your weeks and help to boost your recovery. And remember, it's all about micro habits. It doesn't need to take a lot of time because we're all busy. So that could look like going to bed earlier and getting your 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It could be getting outside at lunchtime and walking around the block. It might be doing some deep belly breathing while you're waiting for the kettle to boil. Or it could be not touching your phone first thing in the morning and creating a new habit that's going to set you up for the day. Frequent, good quality recovery is the key to sustaining your success and your well-being. But I also believe we need to rethink how we view work and performance, and how integrating well-being into the day is essential to how we show up and how we perform, because this then has a ripple effect on our families, our organizations, and our communities. Burnout is costing the globe $332 billion, and it's a multifaceted problem. And today is not about trying to solve everything. It's really about how can you take ownership over your own well-being, build your awareness, and what simple things can you do to move towards flourishing. And for leaders, hopefully you can take away how to spot the indicators of burnout, and also how to build check-ins around well-being with your team. I believe as leaders, you need to set the example. You need to demonstrate that you prioritize health and well-being and are committed to it, because that gives others permission to do the same. Rest and recovery are not a weakness. Rest and recovery are an accelerator, and they're essential to our well-being, our happiness, and our performance. I think we need to think about how we view rest and recovery in the workplace or internally within ourselves. I know I had to change my mindset around how I view rest and recovery, and I now give myself permission to prioritize my self-care and my health and well-being. And I no longer feel guilty about this, because don't wait for something major to happen like burnout or a cancer diagnosis. Create that change today. Now, as a coach, I know that humans have a lot of knowledge. We mostly know what we need to do to flourish. However, there's often a gap between knowing and doing, because behavior change is hard and it's messy. And that's where I help my clients go from the knowing to the doing. It's all about small changes. Those 1%ers add up. They accumulate over time with our health and well-being. It's kind of like compound interest. So I invite you today to take away one small change or one step that you're going to take to create change in your life. I want you to make it small. I want you to make it achievable and easy. And I want you to write it down, because you're more likely to commit to that. So I really hope that you can take my 3-step process of catch it, check in, and tool up for yourself and for those in your team. So now is the time for you to rise above and enjoy some sunshine, to rise above and check in with your values, to rise above and set up for great sleep, to rise above and beat the burnout and sustain your success. Now, if you'd like to connect, I will be at the Meet the Speaker Zone. I'd love to meet you, but thank you all for listening.